It started on a quiet Sunday morning when my stepfather knocked on my bedroom door and asked if I wanted to take a road trip with him. He said it would be good for us to spend some time together since Mom had been busy with work lately. I agreed without thinking much, but there was a small thrill in the idea of just the two of us on the open road. We left before sunrise, the streets still empty, the air crisp. He handed me a coffee he'd picked up, remembering exactly how I liked it. I noticed how easily we slipped into conversation, laughing over silly stories and old memories. Every so often, his hand would rest briefly on my shoulder as he pointed something out, lingering just a second too long. It wasn't enough to make me uncomfortable, but it was enough to notice. The miles rolled by, and I realized I was enjoying his company more than I should have. There was something about the way he listened, really listened, that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in a long time. It was just the beginning, but something in me already knew this trip wouldn't be like any other. The hours on the road seemed to blur into something comfortable, almost intoxicating. He started telling me stories from his younger years, things he said he'd never told Mom. There was a raw honesty in his voice that pulled me in. At a small roadside diner we shared a slice of pie, laughing over the ridiculous size of the portions. When the waitress called us a cute couple by mistake, he just smiled instead of correcting her, and my chest tightened. Back in the car, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in orange and pink. He offered to take my picture, saying the light made me look beautiful, and the way he said it wasn't the way a stepfather was supposed to. As night settled in, the music softened to something slow, our conversation drifting into silence. My arm brushed his as I reached for my drink, and instead of pulling away, his hand rested lightly over mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary. I could feel my pulse quicken, not from surprise, but from the fact that I didn't want him to move it. The air between us had shifted, and though neither of us said it, we both felt it. Rain began to pour so heavily that driving any farther felt dangerous. He pulled into a small roadside motel, explaining it was safer to wait it out. At the front desk, they told us only one room was available. Neither of us argued. Inside, the room smelled faintly of old carpet and coffee. We sat on the bed, watching television, our shoulders touching in a way that felt deliberate. I told myself it was nothing, but every second that passed made it harder to believe. Later, the lights were off, and I drifted into a restless sleep. When I woke, his arm was around my waist, holding me as though it had always been natural. I didn't move. His breath warmed the back of my neck, and I could hear his heartbeat against my spine. In the darkness, his voice was low, almost a whisper, admitting he'd thought about me more than he should. I turned toward him, my own confession slipping out before I could stop it. Our faces were close enough for his lips to find mine, the kiss soft but charged. The moment it happened, we both froze, fully aware of the line we had just stepped over. Morning light slipped through the thin curtains, casting pale stripes across the bed. We moved quietly, packing our things without speaking about the night before. The drive back felt different. Less laughter, more silence, but every so often our eyes met in the rearview mirror, holding for a second longer than they should. When we finally pulled into the driveway, Mom came out to greet us, hugging me first, then him, completely unaware. I felt her warmth and wondered if she could sense the change, the weight I was carrying. Over dinner he spoke casually about the trip, mentioning the places we'd stopped, the meals we'd shared, leaving out the one moment that mattered most. I watched him from across the table, noticing how he avoided my gaze when she was looking. Later that night, alone in my room, I replayed every second, unsure whether I felt guilty, excited, or both. Part of me wanted to erase it, pretend it had never happened. Another part wanted to hold on to it forever. I knew things between us would never be the same, even if no one else ever knew. That road trip had changed everything. And yet, to the world, nothing at all.